We'll start with the next session. The next session is on the undesirable practices of the arrest. I would like to invite Dr. Kuldeep Sharma for the first session. Dr. Kuldeep Sharma is a 76 batch officer from the Gujarat cadre. He has a PhD in public administration. He is ex-DG BPRD. He was my boss when I was there, and I have very pleasant memories of those days. He set up ATS in Gujarat. He was also Commissioner of Police for 3 commissionerates in Gujarat. He was State CID Chief, also wrote the State CID and BPRD manual. He has a book to his credit, Genesis of Indian Police. Then he has been on the UN panel of experts for Sudan. He also helped the Afghan National Police in framing the complaint process and conduct rules. So with these words, I would request Dr. Kuldeep Sharma, and the subject is resorting to arrest under political, media, and public pressure without sufficient justification or prima facie evidence. Dr. Sharma.
I'm audible-ish. Am I audible?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. You're audible, sir.
Good morning, everybody, and greetings from Ahmedabad, a city which was the headquarters of our freedom struggle for 15 long years. So it is interesting that a very important topic of arrest is being debated on this forum. How far-sighted and Durandeshi, I would say, the IPF is that they decided on this workshop earlier, whereas it was on the 16th of July that the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court of India had this to say, and I'd like to quote one sentence. Speaking at Jaipur, he said, "In our criminal justice system, the process is the punishment. From hasty, indiscriminate arrests to difficulty in obtaining bail, the process leading to prolonged incarceration of under trials needs urgent attention." 3 days before that, on the 11th of July, Justice Kaul and Justice had commented even for cognizable offense, arrest is not mandatory. I have to speak on 3 subjects: the pressure of the media, that of the political segment, and the public pressure on the police, which leads to them acting sometimes beyond the boundaries of law. To do that, and although I'm aware that Barkat Ali Saab will be speaking about Section 41, I will very briefly, in a minute, make a couple of points. You will notice that the word arrest appears in the CRPC 245 times, and this is not including the content section. The first time it appears is in Section 2C, which defines what is a cognizable offense. And with regard to Section 41, as Mr. Puar has brought out very correctly, it needs amendment. I want to drive home the point that under Section 41, there are 3 clauses given or 3 reasons given when you can arrest. The first is reasonable complaint. The second is credible information. And the third is if a reasonable suspicion exists. As a professional police officer, I have no problem if I have credible information, yes, I'll proceed in arrest. If I have reasonable suspicion, there is a reasonable suspicion and it exists, yes, I would like to arrest. But the first requirement of reasonable complaint actually goes contrary to the judgment of the Supreme Court in the Lalita Kumar case, which categorically made a distinction between Section 154, meaning that you are bound to register a cognizable case. And secondly, that 157 gives you the leeway of not investigating and doing what the law says. Very briefly, when an offense is registered, there are 3 options. One, under Section 157B, you can decline investigation. Second, you can investigate and submit a final report. And third is that a final report once there is no evidence found. And third is you investigate, you collect evidence, you arrest, and you charge sheet. Arnesh Kumar judgment is not followed by anybody. Many courts are not following. I conclude this introduction by mentioning that one of the most significant thing in the Arnesh Kumar judgment was directing the courts, but Supreme Court directed the courts that if Section 141 is not complied with, 41 and 41A, then that would entitle the accused to get bail. With this introduction, I would like to come to the subject at hand, which was allotted to me. The first I'll take up is the media. Now, the relationship between the police and media is complex, multidimensional, and contingent. See, policing developed much earlier, media came later, and yet the relationship is symbiotic. They are interdependent. Why? Because for the police, the media represents a powerful instrument of communicating with the public. The threats, the crime threats, the steps that can be taken, even the police successes are contributed through the media. For the media, say, a significant portion of what they write, of what attracts their readership, is what the police do. So this is an interesting development that have taken place, which we have to take into consideration. When there is a media hype, one has to carefully examine, is this a media hype because of the nature of the event, or is it motivated? Oftentimes, this is motivated by a certain political party to make the police act in a certain way. I would like to give an illustration here. The Sushant Singh case is so well known that I will not refer to it. But from my own experience, I would like to share with all the participants one experience. I was posted as Commissioner of Police Baroda when Neeta Sadbhaya, a corporator, was done to death. She was at her home sleeping. Her young daughter, hardly 4 years old, was next to her. 3 people came, 2 caught her hands and feet, 1 stabbed her in the abdomen, stomach, and she was killed. There is a talk of killing the child also, but they decided not to. And this led to a huge public outrage. That resulted in my transfer and posting as Commissioner of Police, Surat City. And I would like to tell you that when the pressure builds up, there were processions coming, there were newspaper reportage. And when the pressure built up, the local police arrested one man called Chandrakant Kahar. Chandrakant Kahar straightaway admitted that he committed the crime. When I went to interrogate him, I could not understand why he committed the crime. When I asked him to take me through the entire sequence of how we approached the scene of offense, how we killed the lady, how we walked out, I was not convinced for whatever reason. I asked the Deputy Commissioner of Police and the Inspector and the ACP to collect proper evidence. At the end of 90 days, when it is mandatory to submit a charge sheet, I directed them not to submit a charge sheet in a case where the arrest had been made. Once Kahar was arrested, the demonstration stopped. And now I had to take a decision. I was absolutely convinced that for reasons which were not clear at that point of time, he was a past criminal. He was admitting to committing the crime. I directed that the charge sheet will not be submitted. He applied for default bail and came out. You can well imagine the uproar that would have caused. 9 months later, we arrested the right kind of person. There are right people who had killed her. Essentially, it was a builder lobby which had done away with it because she was objecting to certain construction that they were doing. I am making this illustration that in today's world, it is extremely difficult to deal with this kind of hype, and many police do not have that, may I say, that desire to get into confrontation. If Chandrakant Kahar had been arrested, charge sheeted, the trial would have gone on. The incumbent police commissioner goes away. The trial takes place after 4 or 5 years, and if he's acquitted, nobody bothers. But this is what I would like to mention. I had once attended a major case management course at Quantico IP Academy, and there is an entire segment of dealing with the media. Media cannot...
Sir, sorry for interjecting. You have 4 more minutes.
Very well. Media cannot be ignored, and it becomes extremely important for the police officers to handle the media. At the same time, their pressure should not operate on it. Social media is a very important development, although I'm not very clear which is the best way to deal with it. But yes, it can leverage the wisdom of the crowd. You can use it to interact with the public and also show the human side of policing. Now I come to the political pressure. One of the biggest threats to civilized society today is when police, judges, and prosecutors abuse their power and allow politics to drive the administration of criminal justice. Politics has no place in the criminal justice system. This is a country based on the rule of law, and the principle equal protection to all citizens is what is enshrined in the Constitution. Some time back, two words corrupted in our lexicon. It is called political correctness. Now, this political correctness, when it came for the first time, actually was referring to dealing with the people's representative in a certain way, taking them into confidence in some way, treating them with a certain degree of respect, because that respect was denied to them in the decade of 50s and 60s and even 70s when I joined the service. But today, this political correctness has taken the form of, the form of actually listening and adhering to their totally incorrect statements or to incorrect demands. Well, the political pressures are of two kinds, one from the ruling party, one from the opposition. Clearly, the ruling party political pressure comes to bear is what bothers most police officers today. The pressure from the ruling party is also of two kinds. One, that has its origin in their objectives. If their objective is to win a corporation election or assembly election, they will go to any extent to push you down or to force you to do it. And if you don't do it, they will also push you out. The second kind is that originates from a suddenly developing situation, which the political party in power now realizes can give them a lot of dividends. Police officers have to be aware of that. In this segment, I conclude that in those provinces where there are cadre-based parties, for example, when CPIM was there in West Bengal, in cadre-based parties, they're spread all across the talukas and districts and all. And the kind of pressure they can bring to generate on the police officer from the masses is something that is very difficult for many people to deal with. It is here that the top police leadership has to play a role. I wanted to cite an illustration here, but or let me quickly cite an illustration. I remember when I was in the state CID crime, and one activist case was under investigation. Even the advocate on record from the Supreme Court would call my police inspector in CID crime to say, just arrest this person, and her application in Supreme Court will become infructuous. This is how the whole thing operates. It may come to the police from anywhere. I am not going into the facts since there is no time, but the facts would have been interesting. I now come to the aspect of public pressure very quickly. 2 points I'll make. Please allow me, Ish, to say this, that it is not so much the increase of crime that affects the public, as much as the ability of the police to deal instantly and legitimately against certain individuals who they know in their mind are doing wrong. That is one point I want to make. And secondly, the inclination of public to feeling secure mentally, that we are safe in this area, sometimes it takes them away from scrutinizing police techniques, which means that they are not bothered if they can be safe, in what way the police keeps them safe. And that will explain to you why encounters are many times justified even by the public. Understanding public priorities, attitudes, and expectations is critical. This requires, for example, identifying sectors where the police can work to solve social problems. It also requires the police chief to look into the structure of the policing in this area and the responsibilities and knowledge skills of each of his staff. I conclude in 1 more minute. There is a bedrock of public support for the police, make no mistake. They would like to support the police. What they actually want is a respectful treatment of the public and their issues, which in turn actually influences their compliance of law. And in that way, generates a kind of a moral alignment for the police and the public. By the way of illustration, the Delhi case of Nirbhaya, Delhi police did, in my opinion, commendable job in detecting and undetected crime. The CP and the DCP of that time and their team. And yet you would have noticed demonstrations are going on at India today. And of course, it resulted in the Justice Verma committee, which brought out some very relevant issues. The police has to find a balance between this kind of outrage and that which is politically generated. Thank you very much. Jai Hind.
Thank you, Kuldeep Sharma, sir. I know it's a difficult topic and difficult to summarize in that limited time which we have allocated. You made an interesting observation that 245 times arrest is mentioned in the law, which of course I was not aware of, sir. So thank you very much.